Welcome to Best Practices Weekly. Today we're going to look at an article called Moving Students' Questions Out of the Parking Lot. And we'll look at a way that we can capitalize on students' curiosity and incorporate informational text to empower students to answer their own questions. You can find a copy of Moving Students' Questions Out of the Parking Lot in the February 2014 edition of The Reading Teacher. This article kind of traces what happens when a third grade classroom starts developing some inquiry-based learning practices. So the article traces the quest of a teacher and the teacher's mentor to move questions out of the parking lot, where students put their questions on sticky notes, to the freeway. The author explains that this third grade teacher wanted to create a parking lot so that students who asked questions that were not related to the concept that was being taught at that time, as we know students often tend to do, had a place to put their questions until they could get to them later. The problem became that when their questions were never answered, the teacher never got back to the parking lot, or if he did, it was simply to just take the question off the parking lot and answer the question and then move on. There was really no inquiry, no depth to it at all, and so the quest was to figure out how to empower students to help answer all of the questions that they had. So the article builds the basis for creating an inquiry-based learning environment. Question generation when reading is a proven strategy for effective reading comprehension. And so as we teach students to question, we can teach them to question as they read. The Common Core demands that students ask and answer questions while they are reading. And inquiry-based learning gives students more ownership over their learning, together with keeping them motivated and engaged while in the classroom. So the question the teacher and mentor posed to each other was how? How do we empower students to move their questions out of the parking lot and onto the freeway, which the freeway was actually even a student-created term. So, of course, they turned to informational text because with the Common Core standards, we're expected to have more informational text in our classroom and to have it in front of our students more often. So they created some student-centered small groups that were based on reading levels. These collaborative groups met twice a week to use informational text to help them answer their questions from the parking lot and move them onto the freeway. And just like with anything new in our classrooms, how we introduce the concept of a new group activity is important. So the first thing this teacher did and the mentor did was that they took one of the questions from the parking lot and wrote it on a sentence strip. They modeled whole group how they could use informational text to answer the question. So they started off using the features of the text. They looked at the table of contents, and the table of contents told them which pages the answers to their questions might be on. And then once they got there, they encountered some tables and some maps and graphing. So again, another chance for the teacher to model for the students how to use those features of the text. So then the class together did some guided practice of how to use that informational text to answer the questions. And then the teacher matched up parking lot questions to appropriate levels of informational text for the groups. So it was kind of a leveled guided reading activity, just where the students were in charge of it. The article even said that you could sticky note pages to differentiate. So if you have a group of readers where you know this is going to be a challenging task, you can help take away some of that frustration by sticky noting the pages that you know that they're going to need to use. So there's all kinds of ways that you can differentiate here and individualize instruction and empower students with being able to answer their own questions. I can guarantee you that they would be highly engaged in this format because they have complete ownership over what the questions are, and so in turn they really have ownership over what kind of informational text that they're going to be using during this time. Okay, so this is my favorite part because what happened after they had introduced this kind of rollout of how to move the questions from the parking lot to the freeway was amazing. So these were the unintended results, is what the article calls them. So they started noticing, even outside of these collaborative groups, students using text features more purposefully, which of course they did. That's so exciting. And then students were choosing informational text during independent reading time more and more and more. The quality of the questions became better. They were asking questions on deeper levels. There were more questions. The parking lot was never empty. And the students even published a Did You Know informational textbook with all of the facts that they had found through their research. I just love this best practice for empowering students with inquiry-based learning environment because our students' questions are abundant. So giving them a method to purposely use informational text as a way to answer their questions is a great way to give them ownership of their learning and encourage an inquiry-based learning environment where all students can thrive. I think there are so many skills and so many standards that this strategy can incorporate. So I hope you'll give it a try in your classroom and that you'll help move your students' questions from the parking lot to the freeway. Thanks.